Jung Institute. Dr. Wu, let's bring you in here. What stood out to you in that speech as we saw the cameras panning across the stadium and the obvious enthusiasm from the crowd and President Moon also sounding very resolute there?
Yeah, I think, as you just mentioned, that I think it's the first time in our history that our president addressed the North Korean citizen directly, even though the content itself is more about the nation kinship and the brotherhood of our Koreans, both in North and South Korea. And I think that it also shows the confidence that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has, because previously, North Korean leader has been shut encounters from like Korean people, Korean government officials or Korean political figures to meet their people directly. And now Kim Jong-un agrees to have our president on the stage to directly address their own citizens. And I think that shows the kind of trust that Chairman Kim has on our president. So I think it's very surprising and also very amazing moment that our president directly addressed the North Korean citizens.
Amazing for us here in the studio, amazing for the people there as well, for sure. Well, we can't let this go by without mentioning what we've seen in the past 2 days now. With this, we could say, is almost the climax until now. We'll see what happens tomorrow when they go to Baekdusan. But overall, how do you rate the past 2 days of the summit?
I would rather consider the summit as a part of the process, not the end point of the relations between the Koreans. So there are some things that still are unsatisfactory to many observers and the international community when it comes to the denuclearization process. However, we really didn't expect that all the problems with regard to the North Korea's nuclear weapons can be resolved at this summit. So as we consider this summit as a part of the process, we hope that many things can be moving gradually toward a much better outcome in the near future. So I think that, as President Moon mentioned before he left for Pyongyang, he said that this summit will be meaningful if it can lead to the North and U.S. summit again in the near future. I think that the 2 days outcome, the deliverables, was enough for President Trump to consider to meet Chairman Kim again. So I think that our president's goal of having this summit is almost achieved.
Okay, so this will be seen as progress to some degree by President Trump. Well, Minji, speaking of the things that were achieved in the past 2 days so far, we've got on the defense front, on the denuclearization front, rather, which is where a lot of the attention has been. They're shutting down a key facility at Dongchang-ri, which is used for testing weapons. Let's tell us about some of the significant achievements today.
Well, here they said that the two Koreas share the sentiment that there should be rapid action to build peace on the peninsula, and that's one without nuclear weapons or nuclear threats. So one of the points mentioned here was that North Korea plans to permanently scrap its Dongchang-ri missile site under the observation of experts. Now, we don't know what form that will come in as of yet. And it also proposed that it would be willing to permanently shut down the Yongbyon nuclear complex if the U.S. also makes corresponding measures. Now, the U.S. had been calling for North Korea to submit a list of the nuclear weapons or facilities it may have.
We didn't hear about that today.
Of course, it was not included. So some experts have said this may be like a counter-proposal that the North is making. But we will have to see whether the U.S. is satisfied with this agreement.
A counter-proposal, yeah, I suppose so. There's also agreements in the economy, modernizing railways, roads, all kinds of things. Many of those will be hindered by the sanctions that remain in place on North Korea. But in terms of those sanctions, those are not going to be lifted anytime soon, wouldn't you say?
So I think both sides acknowledge the existence of the sanctions, and there is a limit that North and South Korea can proceed with the economic project. That is why they put a clause like when conditions are met, they agree to reopen the Gaesong Industrial Complex and the Gaesong tourism. So I think that at the current, with the current sanctions, that things can be done right now might be things related to the forestry, because forestry issues can be considered as a humanitarian issue under the UN. So that is why UN sanctions does not block any cooperation with regard to the forestry. So I think we can still go on with that project, but as you just mentioned, that like railroad, road, and other economic project should be go through the UN Council to clear whether there is any violation of the UN sanctions or other sanctions onto North Korea.
Well, and both Koreas are free to, in the military terms, to shut down guard posts, or, as the agreement said, to move, to not hold drills at a certain distance of the DMZ. They're free to do that. That doesn't require sanctions being lifted. On the theme tonight, when we're looking at this celebration there in Pyongyang, it reminds me of the proposal to hold the Olympics together. That would be something.
Yes, in the agreement that North and South Korea jointly proposed for the 2032 Olympic Games, and
it's a long way away.
Yeah, again, this is a really great change in the mood, because last year, when South Korean government proposed to hold the Pyeongchang Winter Olympic Games in some North Korean cities, then there was a strong skepticism from the United States that because of the death of U.S. citizen Otto Yongbyon, that many parents of the U.S. athletes harshly criticized that the move by the South Korean government on that. But today, President Trump tweeted that he actually congratulated that North and South Korea jointly proposed the 2032 Olympic Games. So I think it shows that how the mood has changed onto the Korean Peninsula.
Yeah, he did seem rather excited about that. He said so, but he didn't remark so much on the content of the agreement today otherwise, although he did say that there would be no more missile and nuclear tests, but he didn't really say anything yet. We'll have to wait and see what response he has to it. Yeah, what do you think?
Actually, his Twitter message today was a bit confusing. Yeah, he mentioned that North Korean leader agrees to shut down the missile engine site and the launch pad in the presence of international experts. But he also mentioned that Kim Jong-un has agreed to the nuclear inspection with the final negotiation. So again, today's agreement did not have any element that can be interpreted as at nuclear inspection for North Korean nuclear facilities. So maybe now it's a morning in the United States. Maybe a State Department has to clear what President Trump meant by the nuclear inspection. But I think that it seems that President Trump welcomed the outcome of the summit, and I think it's a good signal for North Korea to move on with the second summit with the President Trump.
The idea of nuclear inspections, that seems like a long time ago now.
Yeah. So now, nuclear inspection requires the declaration of the list, and all other processes should be involved. When you can say the nuclear inspection will be ongoing. So I think President Trump might confuse with some words in the text, or he might hear the agreement on the nuclear inspection through some other channel. So we have to wait until that message is cleared by the U.S. government.
Well, if this evening was a climax in a way, Minji, tomorrow there'll be more events, but less focused on things like military maneuvers and things like that, and more on a journey to a romantic destination, romantic in the sense of history and meaning. and that's Paektusan Mountain.
That's right. So initially they said President Moon would be returning to Seoul in the morning, but there could be some sort of friendship event. And today it was announced that he will make a visit to Mount Paektu, so Paektusan. And it's the tallest mountain in the whole of Korea, and it sits at the northern tip of the peninsula on North Korea's border with China. Now, apparently North Korea made the request and President Moon accepted. President Moon has hinted that he wanted to visit Paektusan from the southern side. He had received requests from friends to go to the mountain from the China route, but he had refused, saying that he wants to go to use the north side, and obviously he will be able to do that today, and hopefully weather conditions will be fair.
It's a place that is important to people in South and North Korea. Throughout history, there's all kinds of legends and stories, so we can all see the meaning there. And President Moon will fly back pretty much directly from Paektusan.
Yes, the nearest airport there is the Samjeon Airport, and we believe that he will be flying from there instead of traveling back to the Sunan International Airport, which he used when he arrived in Pyongyang.
Have you been to Paektusan Mountain, Minji?
No, I have not yet.
I went there, but it was the middle of winter, and it was minus 30 degrees, and we couldn't see Cheonji. Have you been, Professor?
No, but I heard that even during the summer days, the weather, if weather doesn't cooperate, you wouldn't be able to go up there and see the Cheonji Lake. So I hope the weather cooperates tomorrow so two readers can enjoy the scenery there.
I hope so too, and I think that's a good place to wrap it up this evening. Thanks, Dr. Wu, for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Minji.
Thank you.